Welcome to DFS Jags PGA Golf Show 2021 Houston Open DraftKings picks and bets. I'm your host, Tony Altieri, and we've had a little brief 2-week hiatus. Sometimes we have to do that in swing season. We need to recharge, we need to refocus. And so we haven't been on the air for a while, but we're back talking all things PGA bets and picks this week. Now, when I'm saying we, I'm obviously not talking about like the colloquial we, or I don't have a mouse in my pocket. I'm talking about my co-host, the man who is the slayer of DraftKings tournaments himself, the DDS of DFS, Dr. Riku Mukherjee. Rick, what's going on, man? How are you?
Hey, man. Good. You're not going to give a shout out to Hewlett Packard for being the new sponsor of this tournament?
You know, the fact that it's got like 7 names, nothing like gets me more triggered than a golf tournament that has ridiculous names like the Fortinet. And the swing season is just populated with a bunch of turd tournaments and terrible names. So I'm just going to go ahead and not mention Hewlett Packard Enterprise, all of that wonderfulness. I'm going to focus on the fact that, you know, it's kind of a cool logo. It's got a tie into baseball. It looks like the home plate. It's Astros colors. You know, Rick Gehman tweeted out they have some of the best hat game in terms of tournaments around on the PGA. So I'd rather focus on the positive, ignore the negative. Let's just say, you know, HP, whatever we want to do there. But the Houston Open this week for Memorial, man. So what do you see in this week?
Yeah, I like it. Houston Open's always going to be the Houston Open for me. It's I don't know. It's the first time we saw this course last year. I think it played pretty tough, and Carlos Ortiz was. I remember at this time last year, I wasn't sure like who was playing well or whatever, but obviously this tournament was a solid lead in to Augusta, which was the following week, which is the first time the Masters was ever in November. DJ finished runner-up at this event last year to Carlos Ortiz. I think he lost by 1 shot. Ortiz, I believe, from what I remember, I think he birdied 18 or maybe parred 18 to win the tournament. And then we know what happened the following week with DJ dominating at Augusta. So this was a little different of a tournament last year. Obviously, this year we're not leading into a major or anything like that, but it's still another week with a 100,000 grand prize in DraftKings. So it's another week we're going to play golf and bet on it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the thing about this course, and I think what we saw last year, and again, the sample size is really small because it was played at a different venue the times before that, is that this course is long. It's 7,400 yards. It's a par 70. It plays very, very tough. And one of the things that we've talked about before, like in a lot of these swing season events, they're birdie fests. So it's like who can go low the fastest, who can put up the best number is typically who wins in the swing season. And this tournament kind of breaks away from that. You know, Ortiz, you mentioned he won it at like, 12 or 13 under, and the course played very, very tough. The rough was penal. It was long. There was wind a few days. So, you know, it's interesting to see if we see a repeat of what we saw last year in terms of the course difficulty, because when the courses play hard or long, or, you know, the weather conditions seem to alter the way that guys are able to shape shots, we tend to see the better players rise to the top. And typically this tournament hasn't been stacked with a bunch of big names. I would say that this year is not necessarily an outlier, but I say it's one of the better fields where I think the top 15, 20% of the board, we have some very good players. And then there's just a crap load of guys, like 80 of them that are just terrible. So it's an odd mix, but it does present some unique DraftKings pricing and some opportunities on the betting board because we kind of have a bunch of guys pooled together in spots.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing I don't know is the only thing I'm a little weary about is that we've only seen this course one time. So it's not a large sample size like we have at a lot of tournaments where we see the courses year in and year out. So even though it played a little difficult last year, are we going to see it play difficult again this year? Is it going to play more difficult this year, or is it going to be more easy this year where, you know, the winning score is going to be like -20 or something like that? I don't know. It's a tough call, but I've been watching a couple podcasts today and yesterday, and it seems like most people are agreeing that it's a pretty tough course. I've seen a lot of comps to like PGA National, which is in Florida, where they have the Honda Classic, like a par 70 Bermuda, windy, tough course. So you'll see with the players that I talk about that I like. I have a lot of PGA National ties to this course, but before we talk more about this, do you want to talk at all about the last like few weeks? We haven't talked since I guess
We hit the double winner with Hideki in
yeah,
Japan.
so we
That's
hit
the last.
so
That's
we
the
hit the
last
double
breakdown we did.
yeah, so we hit the double winner with Hideki in Japan, which was nice. And then Lucas Herbert won the Bermuda. And then last week, Big Dick Vic went out and won at Mayakoba again, back-to-back victories for him at Mayakoba. So he seems like he's the king of that course. So, any thoughts over the last couple of weeks? I've been, playing a lot of golf. I've been watching golf, watching football, but I really liked watching Vic dominate again at that course last week, and then Lucas Herbert coming out of nowhere to win Bermuda was pretty exciting as well.
Yeah, so I'll go in reverse order there. The Herbert deal, I had a big ticket on Danny Lee that I had told you.
Yeah.
He was a guy that I just sprinkled on very, very late. And I thought, well, this is just a course. Looking back at the courses that he had played well at, where he had won previously, there were definitely some comps. And then the fact that it was going to play with some weather. Danny Lee's a very good weather player. So I had a big ticket on him going into Sunday. And Lucas Herbert obviously ran down him and Taylor Pendrith.
Yeah, I had Pendrith.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing for me, like we talked about, not on the podcast even, but before the show, but just in talking about the tournament in general, was that Lee basically had a 3-hole stretch, and it was really hole 12 where he blew up, and that basically took him out of contention. He was trying to get back into it, and Herbert just stayed steady. He didn't blow up. There were a couple key things that happened to him because they were playing in groups of 3, and he was obviously playing with Danny Lee and with Taylor Pendrith. But there were spots where he hit bad shots, but he was able to get up and down for par, and he made a couple key birdies down the stretch on the back 9 that really just gave him an opportunity. Pendrith fell apart. Danny Lee, like I said, had one bad hole, and it cost him the tournament. But again, that we typically see that tournament in Bermuda is not the best field, and we end up with some odd winner. And of course, we got Lucas Herbert.
He's a good player, man. I think I think he's solid.
Yeah, I mean, and we saw a number of Euro guys and guys that were ex-Korn Ferry guys that kind of dominated that field.
Yeah.
So, not to say that was a bad field, but it was not your typical PGA Tour field like we're seeing more this week, or even like we saw last week in Mayakoba. You mentioned it. Hovland pulls it off. He goes back-to-back years at that course. The big thing for me with Hovland that I saw was the difference in him winning versus what he does every single week, which is top 10, top 15. Is, dude, the guy put on an absolute putting clinic on Sunday.
Yep.
I mean, anything inside of 20 feet, he was draining it. The other big thing was around the greens, he wasn't an absolute abortion around the greens. He basically played to what I would call like field minimum, where he didn't lose any strokes, he didn't gain any strokes. And typically he's losing 4 to 6 strokes around the greens every single tournament. So when you're not gagging strokes around the green and you putt the way that he did, obviously things worked out great. And Hovland's, to me, like you, he's one of those guys. I love to watch him play. I think he's one of those guys that's got a big future, kind of like we're going to talk about this week in a guy like Sam Burns. He's just that next generation of guy that I think is up and coming and is getting ready to make huge waves on the PGA Tour. He's obviously a household name already for those that follow the PGA, but I think he's on the cusp of being a big name in the world of sports this year.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Anybody who watches this show knows how much I love Victor Hovland. I play the guy week in and week out. Nothing different last week. I played him in DraftKings. I had my main lineup last week started JT Victor, and I pretty much cleaned up on DraftKings because 6-6 was low. The only guy that really killed me last week was Vegas. I had him at he was the guy that ruined a 6-6 for me, and he missed a cut on the number. So if he had finished 1 stroke better, I would have really done well in DraftKings. But I had a positive week in DraftKings, so that was really good with the JT Victor lineup. But man, I'll tell you what, on Saturday, I think like front 9 on Saturday, I was looking at that leaderboard at Mayakoba, and I was like, my God, this leaderboard is amazing. It was JT, Vic, Scheffler, Wolf, Neiman, Ortiz, Answer, Garcia. Like it was like a major type leaderboard, and I was like, wow, this is some exciting golf to watch. And I turned it on, and even though the coverage kind of sucked, I didn't have shot link or anything like that. It was still exciting to watch, but it ended up being kind of a boring Sunday, to be completely honest with you. Vic just kind of ran away with it, and no one really could catch him. But good for him. Congratulations to him. He's amazing. Rick Gaiman had a personal interview with him on his YouTube channel last week, so maybe he got some good vibes from that. But he looks like a stud in the making, or not even in the making. He's a stud right now, and I would not be surprised if he won a major sometime soon.
Yeah, the guys to me outside of Vic that showed well was obviously Ortiz. He had a great. I mean, he shot 4 rounds in the 60s. He had a great Friday and a great Sunday.
Yep.
And then the other guy for me was Neiman. We've been kind of waiting to see Neiman get back to that form that we all love so much, the ball striking. And he had a great tournament. He was my only guy that I had in the hunt. I had a sprinkle on Wolf, felt really good through the first 2 days until he died on Saturday.
Yeah.
But
nice fight back from him on Sunday, though.
Yeah, absolutely. The guy goes out and shoots 61 the first day, posts a 74 on Saturday,
yeah.
and then he comes back out and shoots 66 on Sunday. So, I think there's a lot of good vibes for a bunch of those guys coming out of Mayakoba and then transitioning into this week that I think we should be looking at in terms of form. And again, we're going back to shot link data, so we'll have all the information on the strokes gained. I know. So we'll be able to pick up we'll be able to do some live leaderboard betting. We'll be able to see the live stats. So I'm glad all of that is back in the mix this week for Houston.
Can't even remember the last time we had shot link. It feels like it's been forever, but I'm glad to have it back. I don't know why they can't take these shot links towers across the border to Mexico, which makes no sense to me, but anyways, it's been a fun couple weeks in golf. I think we have this week, and then I think next week is the RSM, and then it's a little bit of a break, I think, between the RSM and the Tournament of Champions. So we'll have like a month and a half of basically no golf, and only really big thing that we have then is Brooks versus Bryson the day after Thanksgiving, but that's about it.
Las Vegas.
Yeah. I don't think we'll be doing many shows between the RSM and the Tournament of Champions. So let's.
I think we have the Hero sprinkled in there as well.
Okay,
technically is a Euro, but it's more of like an international event. And there's a bunch of big names, so we may do a Hero show.
Yeah,
but
maybe we can do a Hero show with the 20 golfers in the field and talk about them.
You know what I think we might do too, Rick? I think we should do a major preview show where we go through all 4 majors. We can put that together. We've got some extra time and talk through the guys that we like in each one of the courses, course fits, course comps, those kinds of things. So
sounds good.
I think that's what we'll do. We'll put together a major show,
or like a season preview show, like what we expect from the season. Yeah, something like that. We'll put something together. We'll get some content out there for you guys to watch during the holiday season when you're bored around your family, for sure.
Exactly. When you're sitting in your house on a Thursday with nothing to do, you can watch Rick and I talk about golf that hasn't even happened yet.
Yeah, there you go. All right, let's get into Houston. Come on.
Absolutely. Okay, so like we mentioned, par 70, 7,400 yards, Bermuda greens, scream Sam Burns. We all know that. Key stats for me this week: strokes game approach, off the tee, par 4 scoring. The big thing with the par 4 scoring this week is there are, I think, 8 or 9 of the par 4s are over 440 yards. So regardless of whether you're a bomber off the tee or not, you're going to see some longer approach shots. But guys who do well, long par 4s, who do well on par 5s and can hit approach shots from distances that are over 175 yards, guys with distance and can play long irons. Those guys are going to be guys that I'm going to be hovering on. Some of the courses that you mentioned, Rick, like PGA National, traditionally guys who sink putts and guys who hit long irons. I think you're going to find a very similar comp here. The Zozo is a course at 7,400. Augusta's 7,400. So guys that tend to play well in these bigger tournaments at tougher spots, like we mentioned, cream will rise to the top in this tournament. And you'll see that reflected at least in the major portion of my betting board, where I think I'm going to sprinkle my money. But I think we've actually got a pretty good DraftKings mix. Let's jump right into the guys that are above $10,000. I believe we have 6 names there. It's headlined by Sam Burns. And I would say this, we talked about it a little bit in the jump, but Sam Burns is on the cusp of, again, much like Victor Hovland, becoming one of the best players on tournament. He's won twice in the last 8 months. Bermuda is his best surface. He comes in inarguably the hottest golfer probably in the field. Statistically, from all the strokes gained metrics, he's off the charts, and he's also played well at this tournament. So he even at $11,000, where I don't know, 6 months ago we were getting Sam Burns at 8-9K. It may seem strange, but I think at 11-1 there's value at Sam Burns. Going down a little bit farther down the board, we mentioned some of the other guys coming in very, very well, which is Matthew Wolff. Scotty Scheffler played well. Sungjae Im, the Bermuda specialist. And then a few names that we're used to seeing maybe in the 9Ks, but because the field is, I guess, not as top heavy as last week, those guys have been pushed into the 10Ks, and that's Hatton and Finau and Cam Smith. Who do you like in the 10K range?
I'm gonna lead it off right here at the top of Sam Burns. It's weird because you would think that the average person that's gonna play DraftKings this week, or see this betting board and be like, okay, Sam Burns, like, who is this guy? Like, I mean, they might not know who he is. People that are using their NFL money to play golf this week, and they'll be like, Sam Burns is at the top of the board. But you know what? The guy deserves to be there. He's turning into an elite player. He's on his best surface. He's been playing lights out this swing season. He's been playing lights out for all of this year, to be honest with you. And I love him at the top, and it shows in the ownership projections right now. He is coming in the highest owned in this range. So even though like he's coming in 20% owned, I still like him. I mean, there's no reason not to play him. He's long off the tee. He's good with his long irons. He's good at putting on the surface. So definitely like Burns. I'm gonna stick with the PGA National Comp on. You'll see on a lot of my picks this week. So I'm gonna go to Sungjae and I'm gonna go to Hatton also in this range. Those are guys that play really well in Florida at PGA National. Hatton's won there. Sungjae's won there. So yeah, I mean, it's sorry, Hatton hasn't won there, but he won at Bay Hills. But yeah, same thing, Bermuda, Florida course, tough course. But yeah, I like Sungjae, I like Hatton, and I like Burns up here. The guys that are coming in the lowest owned guy, surprisingly, in this range is Tony Finau. So if you're looking for a leverage spot for someone as a game theory play, you could definitely go overweight on Tony. I don't think you can really go wrong with any of these guys. I'm not really high on Scheffler or Wolff or anything, even though they both played well last week. But if I was going for leverage, I would go for Finau, but other than that, I'm going to stick with Sungjae, Burns, and Hatton up here.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Burns right off the jump. Going back to the Travelers, which was, I believe, in June of this year, Sam Burns has not finished outside the top 21 at all, except for one tournament, and that was the Open Championship where he missed the cut. Other than that, his numbers read 13th, 2nd, 21st, 8th, 18th, a win, 14th, and 5th at the CJ Cup. Yeah. I mean, when you're talking about form and a guy that has been showing that he can play big in big spots, he can close, he can play in big tournaments. Burns checks all of the boxes. For me, to your point, Finau's kind of the forgotten man here, and it's because his form has not been great. He has okay course history here, and I shouldn't say course history. I should say tournament history in Houston. Yeah. It's not great. And statistically, Finau tends to be in the upper third of the field. So no big surprises that in terms of the statistical models that he's ranked 14th. So, in terms of how we look at all of the guys at the top of the board, I think it's not a huge surprise that Finau's underowned, other than the fact that it's Tony Finau and we're just so used to seeing him being 20 to 25% owned. I also think that the other guy that's probably going to come underowned here is Scheffler, and it's just because he hasn't been able to win a tournament yet. Again, we are in Texas. He's a Texas guy. You want to talk about being great with long irons. He absolutely stripes long irons and hybrids. So, there's an opportunity there, but I think I'm going to have to agree with you. For me, I'm not going to be afraid to eat the chalk at the top of the board with Burns. There's just too many signs that show that he is ready to win again. And then the other guy for me probably in this range is going to be Cam Smith or Terrell Hatton. Hatton for the same reasons that you mentioned and the same reasons that I like Burns. His form obviously hasn't been as good, but he played well in Europe and he's really turned it around from where he was last year. And then Cam Smith, there's always the Aussie narrative when we play tournaments in Texas. He is a very good putter. and his ball striking, especially off the tee, has been better this last year than it was previously. So I think I'm on board with Hatton and Burns, and I'd probably say Cam Smith's probably the other guy that I would sprinkle in there. And it's not surprising that the three names that I've mentioned are probably the most heavily owned. Sung Jae is the guy that I think I'm interested to see where ownership ends up. Again, just like Burns, all of the statistical things that you'd like to see, especially what he does well on the greens, his best putting surface, it is Bermuda.
Yeah.
So, Sung Jae is another guy where I could see maybe pivoting from either Smith or Hatton or even Burns if there's a massive difference in ownership on Sung Jae Im.
Yeah, and we can't deny his form right now. The guy's coming off of a 9th place and a win in back-to-back events in Vegas. So definitely, I'm definitely going to be heavy on Sung Jae this week. Yeah, I mean, so I think to be completely honest with you, I think a really, really unique build this week is going to be with 2 guys above 10K this week. I don't think many people are going to do that at all. I think if anything, people are either going to skip the entire 10K range or just have like one guy up here and then drop down to the 9s or the 8s or something like that. So if you want to get different in your GPP builds, you could definitely sticking 2 of these guys up here. I don't have a problem with any of these 2 guys, any 2 guys you want to stick up here, but I think a solid start build would be Burns and Sung Jae or Burns and Hatton, and then dropping down to like the low 7s and filling out the rest of your lineup. So, yeah, I mean, I like this. I like this range a lot. I think the winner could easily come from this range, but as we go down the board, we'll talk about guys we like more. So let's hop into the 9s.
Yep. In the 9K range, we've kind of got a dichotomy of playing styles listed here. We've got guys that are big names and guys that have been very, very hot as of late. The guys that are hot, obviously, Neiman, Gooch, Wise, Ortiz, coming in with phenomenal form. And all of those guys have played well at this tournament historically. The other names in this range are Koepka, Scott, and Reed. Brooks Koepka, like we find from week to week in non-majors, we never really know what to expect. He did finish, I think, top 10 here last year, so it is a course that he has played well at. It's been out there a couple of times that he helped design. He was a player consultant in the design of this course. So understanding the layout, the undulations, the best positions to be hitting from, he's going to have a little bit of an advantage over other people because he helped to design the course. Adam Scott has become a little bit of an enigma in that he's completely flipped what his player profile is. He's always had great long irons and been a terrible putter. He's always been a lead off the tee. Over the course of the last 8 months, that's totally changed, where the long irons are still firing, but he's become a putting maven and off the tee game has slipped. So we talked about in the beginning as we were leading up into the show, putting and long irons are really where I think we're concentrating a lot of our efforts and where the winner here last year and typically on these styles of courses comes from. Scott fits that profile. And then, of course, Patrick Reed. Reed flashed some form here 2 weeks ago at Bermuda where he closed with like a 62 or 63 to put himself into second place. But we don't really know what we're getting from Patrick Reed. I will say this, historically, he's a good putter. He's obviously got great around the green game. And when conditions get tough and the course is tough, that's where Patrick Reed tends to play his best golf. So obviously a lot baked into all of that. What do you like in the 9Ks this week, Rick?
I'll start off by saying that since you didn't mention it, for you guys out there, Carlos Ortiz did withdraw from this tournament. So
didn't know that.
He is a WD from this tournament. That news broke a few hours ago. So unless you're playing me heads up in a lineup or something like that, do not play Carlos Ortiz in your lineup. So that does funnel out some of the ownership in this range. And to be completely honest with you, Tony, I love every single dude in this range. To be completely honest with you, this is my range right here. I like Koepka. He finished, what did he finish last year? He finished 5th at this tournament last year. Like you said, he helped design this course. I bet him this week. It's one of those situations where you see a 3 next to Brooks Koepka's name in like the 30-1 range, or like, high 20s or something like that. And I think he's arguably talent-wise, he's the best player in this field. So of course, I think that's a very good value bet. If you don't want to play him in DraftKings, I understand there's that miscut equity. There's that, is he going to show up? Who knows? But as a bet wise, I think 30-1, if you can get him in that range for Brooks Koepka, is a great bet this week. So I definitely like Koepka. Then I mean, just dropping down, I like Adam Scott. I mean, the guy, he tends to play in really, really tough fields all the time. And the last time we saw him play in a not really strong field was at the Wyndham earlier this year, and he should have won that tournament, to be completely
Yep.
honest with you. He had like a
Finished
3 foot,
second. Yeah.
yeah, he had like a 4 foot putt to win the tournament. So I like him in this field. I bet him also. He's definitely one of the guys I like. Yeah, I mean, just dropping down, Taylor Gooch is, probably one of the most hottest players on the earth right now. He's been on fire the last couple of weeks. Definitely could see going to him, but I really I think I'm going to stick with. Okay, so I understand that there's the recency bias of Wise and Gooch and Neiman, like these guys that have been hot recently. But I'm gonna stick more with the macro long view guys here with Koepka and Scott and Reed, who I think is a phenomenal player in tournaments where it's like a long, tough course, windy. We saw him win at Torrey last year in the Farmers. So I'm definitely going to go with the veterans more than the young guys in this range, but I could definitely see why somebody would absolutely love Taylor Gooch. He's coming in the highest owned in this range, but the pivots are definitely going to be Adam Scott and Patrick Reed in this range. So definitely, take it for what it's worth. The game theory guys are going to be, Koepka, Scott, and Reed. The higher owned guys are going to be Neiman, Wise, and Gooch. So, if you want to play a cash game, play those guys. If you want to play GPP, play the old vets.
Yeah, I mean, I'm taking a little. I like the same guys that you named, but I'm taking a little bit of an approach change, which is there's some guys that I'm going to use on my betting card, and there's some guys that I'm going to use in DraftKings. So that's way I'm covered because, like you, there's so much to like in this range. Koepka and Scott are both bets for me. I looked really hard at Patrick Reed. For me, the number that my book was offering just wasn't big enough for me to jump in on it. So I chose to go a different route. But, I'm going to have sprinkles of Neiman and Gooch and Wise in my lineups because they just have played so well. I could see this again. Aaron Wise is another guy who his Achilles heel has been putting, and he has been phenomenal with his putter here over the last few weeks. So I think there's so much to like. To your point, you're just going to have to take some hardline stances. And I think really for me, it's going to come down to ownership for how much I'm going to be playing Neiman, Gooch, Wise, and Reed and DraftKings. I'm going to use this area to try and pivot because I think all of these guys are live here this week. And I don't think there's a terrible play with any one of the four guys that I named. I will not be using Scott or Koepka in DraftKings. Those guys will be bets for me. So that way I feel like I'm hedged a little bit and I'll have a piece of pretty much everybody in this range. Dropping down to the 8Ks, the name dispersion, the talent level drops off pretty significantly from the 9s and 10s.
Yeah, I know.
There's still some value here. There's guys that have been hot and have played well. But when we drop into this range, it's headlined by Russell Henley, and at the bottom we have Max Homa, who we haven't seen for a while, but the guy does have a win already this year, and he's at $8,000. And Russell Henley, who it feels like every week people are talking about Russell Henley, and he just hasn't materialized in any form or fashion in terms of finishes and tournaments. Also sprinkled in here, guys like Kokrak and Leishman. Mav McNeely, another guy that everybody talks single week. Seamus Powers, who's been playing great golf. Cam Tringali, who I don't know a more steady golfer. If there was a bet, if you just bet him top 10 every single week, you would be so far ahead in money. It'd be crazy.
Yeah.
Dating back to probably the beginning of the year.
Guy never wins though.
Yeah, he doesn't win, but he just consistently plays and finishes inside the top 10. It's insane.
Yeah.
Who do you like in the AKs?
I don't know, man. This range is tough for me. It's a dead zone for me, to be completely honest with you. I'll look at, Shane Lowry, I guess, jumps off the page a little bit to me. Just
long irons, tough courses, right? Firestone, yeah.
Exactly. Long iron, tough course, windy. I could definitely see playing some Shane Lowry. Matt McNeely, I can't play a 18% Matt McNeely. That's just way too much. I think he's too highly owned. I understand he played well last week, but I can't get there with Matt at that ownership. I would rather pivot to like Leishman or Cam Tringali. Like you said, Cam Tringali is coming in the lowest owned in this range. Him and
crazy.
Yeah, which is crazy. So him and Lanto are coming in the lowest zone. I'm not gonna play any Lanto, so I'd rather play Tringali. But um, I can see the Henley love. The guy has, he has a great history at this tournament, not at this course exactly, but I think he's won the Houston Open before. I think maybe he might have won it twice. I'm not sure, but yeah, I can see the love for Henley. But I think my guys here are going to be Lowry and Leishman and maybe some Seamus Power just because he's been hot this swing season. But that's about it. I don't really like this range.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what happens with Powers. He's done really, really well in what I would call weaker field events. His win came at the Barbasol, which is an alternative event. And, we haven't really seen him in big events that I think are of note where the fields are super strong. And not to say that this field is by any means major-esque or like the Memorial, any of those, but it has some top-level talent. And to see his name in there at $8,400, it is a little jarring historically versus where we've been able to get him. You cannot argue, to your point, with his performances.
Mm-hmm.
The guy's been a top 20, top 30 machine here on the PGA Tour. And, he's got a couple top 10 sprinkled in there going back to like July of this year.
Yep.
So I think for me, Powers is probably the guy that I'll lean on in terms of having him in my DraftKings lineups, as well as Tringali, just from the sheer miscut equity. The fact that I think those guys are a fairly solid bet in the 8Ks to make the cut. And then I really like Lowry from a betting perspective. He doesn't score a ton of DraftKings points. Like we said, he's kind of in that mold of the Hatton and the Reeds, where we tend to associate him with being as more of a grinder, tougher tournaments, not birdie fests. So I think that bodes well in the betting market, where a guy like him who has top level talent and has won a major could show up and win a tournament like this. And I don't think you could say that at a lot of guys in the 8Ks. Mark Leishman and Jason Kokrak historically, if you took the long-term form, this should be a perfect setup for them for what they do well. Yeah. Putting and good off the tee game. But both guys have been very, very sporadic, especially Kokrak. I mean,
he's been terrible recently. Terrible.
Yeah, he lost the putter. He's not been good with the driver. So I don't know if he's going through swing changes or injury or just getting warmed up, but he's not been the guy he was last year. And then Leishman has been all over the board. He was terrible last year, but he somehow eked out a win. And I just never know what to expect with him. So I can't trust him. The one guy, and Rick Gaiman mentioned to it on his pod earlier this week, is Bezuidenhout, is just how many DraftKings points he scores each and every week, because he's like birdie, eagle, double bogey, and obviously you're not getting the same level of penalty for a guy that's making those big numbers as when he does land a birdie or an eagle. But what do you think about Bezuidenhout this week?
I'm not on him. I don't think this course suits him that well. I think he's more of a kind of like a bomb and gouge kind of course, like we saw like at where do you play, Bermuda, like a short kind of resort course. That's where I kind of like to play Bezuidenhout more than like a long, tough, long iron course. So I'm not in on him this week. I actually never really get to him, to be completely honest with you. He's kind of a name I skip over, even though it's a interesting name to just a name to look at. Like, he has a lot of Z's and weird things in his name, but I just never really get to him. I'm not a Bezuidenhout guy. I'd rather eat the chalk with McNeely right below him, or Power right below him, or just find the money and go up to Leishman, to be completely honest with you.
Yep. Yeah. No, I hear you there. I think by and large, this range is, to your point, is going to be ignored because there's so much to like at the 10K and the 9K level.
Yeah.
That people are just going to end up skipping over this whole group of guys.
Yeah. I get the whole, outscoring his finishing position and stuff like that, but I don't know. He's not really a favorite of mine to click on. I'd rather go to some of the other guys, completely honest with you.
Speaking of the other guys dropping down into the 7Ks, we've got a pretty unique group of guys here. We've got some guys that have been recently hot. We've got guys who finished the year very, very strong. We've got some big name guys that we haven't seen in a while. And there just seems to be a smattering of all different types of player profiles here in the 7K range. It's headlined by Mackenzie Hughes. Great with long irons, great putter, can chip in from anywhere. EVR, who has been this new version of EVR that somehow is in contention with having one of the best putters on tour. I don't know how that happened, but it has. And, you know, Harold Varner, who is the complete opposite, just a tee to green beast each and every week, rates out very, very well in the model again this week. Our boy Mito, Woodland, Grace. There are a few guys I really like in this range, but I do think that this is going to be peppered by a lot of different people. And I think ownership is going to be dispersed because of the different narratives that I mentioned. You've got value guys, you've got guys that are hot, and guys that have historically done well at certain courses like this where it demands long irons and putting.
Yeah. I'm just going to say this right now. Until the guy misses 4 cuts in a row, I'm going to play Mito every single week this PGA season. Like literally every week that he plays, he's going to be in my DraftKings lineup. He's probably going to be a bet. I love the guy. I'm not going to be deterred by one miscut from last week. Everybody misses a cut every once in a while. I'm going to hop right back on him this week. If anything, I like the miscut last week because his ownership actually goes down a little bit. I'm looking at it right now. I mean, he's still one of the higher owned guys in this range, but he's not like the chalky like 17, 18% that we've seen from him in the past. He's looking more like 8, 9, 10%. But definitely love Mito this week. I'm going to also go to Brandon Grace here. I've been hearing a lot of chatter for some Grace love this week. His ownership's not that high, but at a tough, long, windy track, that pretty much suits a Brandon Grace kind of mold. So definitely have him on the betting card. Definitely going to be playing him on DraftKings. And since you didn't mention it earlier, I'll also mention it here. Emiliano Grillo also withdrew from this tournament, so he is not in this tournament. So don't play him in your DraftKings lineups. Who do you like in this range? Because I like Grace, I like Mito. I also like. I'm gonna hop back on Vegas. Like I said, he was in my main lineup last week, and he missed a cut on the number, but he's going back to a place that he's familiar with in Texas. He's a Texas guy, so definitely going to go back to some Johnny Vegas. He's very long off the tee, good with his long iron, so definitely going to go back to some Vegas. But who do you like in this range?
Yeah, I'll kind of bust it into quadrants. I'm with you on Mito for all of the same reasons. I also like
this whole season until he misses 4 cuts in a row. Then I'm out.
Yeah. I mean, there's just nothing that's going to deter me from that. He's just, again, every single model you run, he just is going to be at the top because the ball striking is just immaculate.
Yep.
I like Gary Woodland this week. Woodland and Grace are both bets for me. I'll talk about Woodland a little bit since you didn't hit on him, and it's just that the long-term form for a guy like Woodland, I like that. He's typically not a birdie fest guy. He plays his best golf at tough tracks.
Yep.
So I like Woodland as well. Dropping down into kind of that less than 7,500 range. I love Charlie Hoffman in Texas. I'm a Hoffman truther. I tend to play him more than I probably should.
Yep.
The other guy in that area is always Sebastian Munoz. I cannot stay away from him. So I will not be away from him this week. You drop down kind of into the 71 to 73 range. I love Danny Willett. Danny Willett, again, if this thing really plays difficult, that means Danny Willett is in play. He's not the kind of guy that's going to go out there and shoot 22 under, but you want to talk about 9, 10 under, things get grindy, maybe it gets windy, the course plays super tough. Like that screams Danny Willett to me at a $7,200. He's worth a risk for me there. I like Ryan Palmer for all those same reasons.
I was going to say Ryan Palmer too. I forgot to mention his name. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all of those same reasons that I mentioned
and he's been playing better recently too.
Yep. And the other guy that I like here, strictly because it's Bermuda, is Keith Mitchell.
Yep.
We've seen flashes of him numerous times during the course of this year where he's just popped up kind of out of nowhere and had just unbelievable rounds. You get him back on his best putting surface and at $7,000. I like him better than, any of the other guys there. The only one that I would sprinkle in down in that range is maybe Norlander, just because of the ball striking. I don't think Norlander is a guy that is going to win a golf tournament like this, but if you're looking for some miscut equity and the opportunity to get a guy into the weekend and finish inside the top 40, Norlander's another name that I would throw into that mix.
Yeah, I agree with all those names. I'm going to go to Willett and Palmer and Hoffman. Like you said, I have a soft spot for Hoffman. In Texas, the guy was in my main lineup when I won a GPP. So definitely going to go back to him, even though he hasn't been the greatest lately. I'm going to go back to Taylor Pendrith. I think I played him pretty heavily in DraftKings the week that he almost won at Bermuda. I'm going to go back to him. He's long off the tee. He's a good ball striker. I think he fits this course pretty well. So I'll definitely go back to him. And I cannot believe I'm about to say this, Tony. You might throw up a little bit in your mouth when I say this, but I might actually play a little Jason Day this week. I can't believe it. I'm just as shocked as you are. Trust me, the guy sucks, but he's Australian, plays well in the wind. Did finish 7th here last year. Pretty good price on him here at 7,500. I'm not saying you have to go like super. I'm not going to go like super high. He's not going to be in like 30 of my lineups or anything like that. But in a 150 build, he's going to be in like 10, 15 lineups for sure.
Well, I mean, when you look at the strokes gain metrics using a tool like Fantasy National, and you look at Bermuda surfaces and courses over 7,400 yards, you run that historically. The name that pops up at the top of that list is Jason Day. And again, obviously, we're getting a lot of stuff beyond what happened last year into that mix. But the fact that he is the number one player and he did have a top 10 at this course last year, it's enough to make me have the consideration like you did, where it's not outside of the realm of reality where Jason Day could find his way into some lineups. And at the end of the day, for me with him, it's going to come down to ownership. If nobody's playing him because he's been abysmal for the last 12 months, there's leverage there. You can fit him into your lineup with another guy in this range. And have a ton of leverage to play, to your point earlier, 2 guys in the 10Ks or 3 guys in the 9Ks, and be able to add a guy like that because he gives you so much more room in terms of reaching your 50K ceiling on DraftKings. He's not a bet for me, but I could see playing him in DraftKings this week.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough pill to swallow, but who knows what he's been up to? The guy just had a baby again, so he has new baby daddy swag again. So I mean, maybe he has a little bit of rejuvenation this year. Who knows? I mean, maybe he's been practicing a lot. We don't know what he's been up to. We know he just had a baby, so obviously he spent some time with family, but maybe he got back on the grind and he's been practicing a lot recently. We don't really know. We haven't seen him in a really long time. So it's just a flyer. I don't mind it. I think the price is right, so definitely could sprinkle a little bit of Jason Day for sure. Just plug your nose and click his name a couple times.
Yeah, and if he misses the cut, it's like, oh well, don't have him in 80% of your lineup, but having him sprinkled in to differentiate yourself, I think, is a key thing. Because when we talk about these larger tournaments, like having some ownership leverage is huge. That's what we see each and every week. The guys that end up winning have that 1 or 2 guy that nobody else owns, and that is just enough differentiation that allows them to vault up the leaderboard on DraftKings. Oddly enough, when I ran the model for last 50 rounds inside the last 12 months on Bermuda surfaces with courses that are over 7,400 yards, the top 3 guys, according to Fantasy National, are all in this $1,000. Charlie Hoffman, number 1, Gary Woodland, number 2, and Lee Westwood, number 3.
Get Lee Westwood out of here. Play the other 2.
he's like low budget Euro Phil Mickelson for me.
I know the guy's too old, but yeah, I like those names. Charlie Hoffman and what was the other name you said?
Gary Woodland, number 2.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, sure.
Dropping down into the dumpster, we go diving, and like I said, a massive list of guys. There are nearly 80 guys in the field that are priced below $7,000. A lot to choose from. If you're playing a guy that's more than 10% owned down in this range, you're probably making a mistake. But there's a lot of names here. Obviously, the guy that I highlighted on our card is a guy I really like this weekend at DraftKings, and that's Tagala. We've seen him flash. The ball striking is unbelievable. And we just need him to chip and putt at what I would call league min, right? Don't lose 9 strokes chipping and putting. So I like Tagala here. I also like your other Indian brother, Aaron Rai, for DraftKings.
Oh, man, I thought you were going to say Anirban Lahiri. That's my other
Dude,
Indian guy.
I
I like
actually
him
like
too. I like him too.
I like all three of the Indian national players.
Yeah.
I know Tagala's from California, but all three of your brothers, I really do like this week. And you know, Anirban Lahiri is another guy who just he pops up in rounds, very good off the tee, very good putter. You're going to need both of those skill sets this week. So
Where's Akshay Bhatia? I could have played the all Indian lineup.
I know, man. You could go four guys all below 7K, and
Yeah.
then go grab Burns and Sungjae and call
Yeah.
it good.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like Tagala this week too. I have him on my betting card. He's definitely a play for me. Um, I the tough pill here to swallow, the decision that most people got to make here is whether or not they're going to eat the chalk with Luke List or fade it. I don't think I can get there with the almost double digit percentage ownership on Luke List. I mean, the course seems like it suits him very well, but the ownership is just bad there. He's just way too highly owned. He's double the ownership of the next person in this range. So I think I got to fully fade Luke List here for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you know, List checks the boxes. The only difference is that he's just such a bad putter, and I recognize that on a tougher course, some of that's going to be mitigated because you're not going to need to sink every birdie putt in order to win. Par is going to be a good score on a number of these holes, and because he is so elite with the ball striking, especially on approach, he's not going to put himself in a lot of bad positions where he's going to have to sink, you know, 25, 30 footers for par like a guy like Patrick Reed is going to have to do.
Yeah.
But you know, it for me, because of the ownership, I have to stray away. Oddly enough, you know, and I don't really get it, but the guy that seems to be popping up because he popped in my model and everybody that's running it is Nick Watney. And obviously he's played well the last few weeks here coming in, but again, even though he's ranked 11th in my overall model, I'm not going to play Nick Watney.
What is this? 2012? Is this
Yeah,
2012?
exactly. Yeah, there's other guys in here too. Like, you know, I've mentioned before in a couple of our shows, Roger Sloan is a name. He has not played well here the last few weeks, but you rewind 60 days ago, and he was one of the best guys in terms of his tee to green game. Wyndham Clark, long off the tee. For me, the guys that I really like below 6K, and again, throw up in my mouth a little bit, but I like Hudson Swafford. We're in Texas. You know, him and Patton Kazire in Texas, I just put those two
Where's Pat
guys because
Kazire
they
this
just
week?
tend to
Why
play
isn't he in
well.
the field?
I know, right?
I would insta
I
click
know.
his name.
Yeah, so I like Hudson Swafford a lot this week. I mentioned Anirban Lahiri. I like Lahiri a lot this week as well too.
Yeah.
And then the other guy that's kind of sprinkled in here who has been playing very, very well, and again, Texas narrative is Andrew Landry. I like Landry a lot this week, and I don't think anybody's going to be playing him. You've got a ton of other names. Sevenson was popular. Duffner's been good. You know, Kyle Stanley, the guy who busts models every single week because his ball striking is so good. He's down here.
Bad.
Yeah, you know, there are a ton of names down in this range. Zach Johnson, I mean, the guy's a freaking major winner, a multi-major winner. He's down in this range. The other guy that I would say that I'm interested in playing, and I actually didn't see his name earlier, but when I was going through this, I thought about it was Ryder. Sam Ryder's been playing very well. He played well here last year. You know, he's a guy when we talk about long irons and putting, that's kind of his game.
Mm-hmm.
And so those would be the guys for me. I don't know. There's a lot of just names down here. Your Doc Redmans, your Hank Lebiotas, your Dylan Fratellis. So there's a lot of popular names that I think should disperse ownership. And that, I think that is the big reason why I can't do Luke List at, 10, 12, 15%, because there are so many options down here.
I agree. I'm going to rattle off some names that I'm going to be sprinkling in my lineups, starting at the top. Russell Knox finished 15th here last year. Missed the cut last week, but before that had a 12th place finish. Playing pretty good golf, so 6,900 definitely goes some Russell Knox. Adam Long coming in with 2 top 25 performances, had an 11th place finish here last year. Definitely like some Adam Long. Sepp Straka finished 5th here last year, so good course history at this course last year. So definitely could play some Sepp Straka. Rolling down a little bit, like you said, Lahiri I like, Andrew Landry I like, Brandon Hagee's long off the tee, Duff Daddy. I think I'm going to definitely play some Duffner this week. That's about it. I don't really have much else. At the Stone Min, I could play a little Chase Kepka maybe.
Go the Kepka double.
Yeah,
Brooks versus Chase.
he's actually not the worst golfer. Like he's okay. Like he actually will make a cut at the bare minimum of 6,000. So which is all you need him to do at 6,000. So if you're jamming in two 10K guys and a 9K guy, then and you need someone at the min, Chase Kepka isn't the worst play in the world. Other than that, I don't really have many names. Sung Kang, maybe he's won in Texas before. I don't know. Is Danny Lee in this field? He's been playing really well recently. Where is he at?
He is not in this field. Thank
Damn.
God.
He had two. He finished in the top 10 last week again. So he's playing pretty good. Why isn't he playing this week?
He probably wasn't invited to play because Danny Lee, I think, is on a medical exemption, but I don't know that. I just
No, but I think like he has. Didn't he get, because of his last two performances? Didn't he get his? Is he good with his privileges
he
now?
may have. Danny Lee's one of those guys, like he pops up like every 15th tournament on tour, and it's typically just a terrible tournament. Again, this fits the profile, being the Hewlett Packard Enterprise Houston Open.
Yeah,
but I am actually surprised that he's not in this field.
Oh,
the other guy,
one name that I forgot, I do want to mention it here, but just because we're in Texas, is Dylan Fratelli. I'm going to play some Dylan Fratelli this week. He's a Texas guy.
I went to that well here not too long ago, and he's been so bad. I mean, I get it. The Texas narrative, the fact that he is fairly long off the tee, he is a good putter. He pops at tougher tracks. We saw him show up at the U.S. Open. We saw him show up at the PGA Championship. We saw him show up at the Open Championship. So he tends to play well at tougher courses. So I get the narrative.
I will say the reason why I like him, not only because it's in Texas, but he's been flip-flopping bad and good for the last like 5 tournaments. He's miscut, 22nd miscut, 39th miscut. So he's due for a made cut top 30 performance this week.
Yeah. The other names which surprised, and I reran the model that I was mentioning when we were in the 7Ks for the guys who perform well on Bermuda surfaces on courses that are 7,400 yards or more. And oddly enough, there are a few guys in the 6K that popped up in the top 15 or 20 of that model. The first one is Scott Piercy. Scott Piercy and Ryan Palmer, kind of the same profile in terms of what they do well, the same style of player. So not surprising that Piercy is number 9 in that model for Bermuda greens on 7,400 yards plus. Brandon Hagee, again, long off the tee, pretty good putter. He pops up at number 11. And then surprisingly enough, back-to-back at 14 and 15, a guy I mentioned, Putnam, and then Werenski. Werenski's played well. His best tournament on that style of course, the longer Bermuda course, was actually at API last year. He had one of his best tournaments, gained in basically every measured strokes gained metric. So Werenski, again, if we're throwing darts and grabbing straws, a little bit of the data may be able to point you in a direction, but all of those guys are in the top 15 on these longer Bermuda courses.
Sounds good. I don't really have anything else down here.
Yeah. I mean, again, pick your poison and just hope you grab the right guy. Try to find something to latch onto, and for God's sakes, don't play Luke List. I mean, don't do it. I say that now. Watch, he actually wins this tournament, and people are going to be like, "Dude, you still play him, and he won."
He's not winning this tournament. If he wins this tournament, I swear to God, he that'd be great. You'll see in a second on my betting card. I'm 110-1, but I'm not playing him on DraftKings.
Yeah, not a DraftKings because of the ownership. I'm okay with the bet. Speaking of bets, let's go ahead and go to our picks for the week. For me this week, obviously, I am heavy in the range that I love, which is that 25 to 75 range. I got a bunch of guys in there, all the guys that we talked about. 2 of those, Mito and Seabass, are just auto bets for me. I just play them every freaking week, and I'm going to continue to do it. So Mito and Seabass are there. You can see the other guys in that range, all guys that we talked about: Hatton, Koepka, Scott, Lowry, and Grace. Bombs, I like Woodland. I think, like we mentioned, the narrative of Cream rising to the top. Woodland is a pedigreed guy in terms of his long-term form. He can compete and win in strong fields. I like the statistical stuff that points his direction. Willett for the same things. And then, of course, Charlie Hoffman in Texas. I'm all in at 90-1. Who do you got on your card this week, Rick?
These guys might not believe it, but I don't actually look at your card before I place
And
my
we have
bets.
like all the same
We
guys.
have like
Yeah.
all the same guys. I have Brooks, Adam Scott, Hatton, Mito, Grace. That's like my main guys. And then bomb wise, I have Palmer, Keith Mitchell, Luke List, Pendrith, and Thigala. You talked me into Hoffman. I wasn't gonna bet him, but I have a soft spot for him. He's in Texas, even though he's been playing bad. I'm gonna add Hoffman to my card for sure. But that's about it for me.
Yeah, the only other guy that I'm still waffling on, it's just because of the number is Sam Burns. Like, I mean, all of the metrics, all of the narrative, it points to
Yeah,
Burns. I don't know
I
if
don't think
can
you
get
can bet.
home with that
I
number.
don't think you can bet him at 15-1 or whatever he's at right now.
I
Like, it's
just,
not a bettable number.
yeah, I mean, there's just so much value down the board, and we talk about like why we place bets on the guy that we're betting. It's because the number's good. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, if he finishes second or misses a cut, it pays me the same. I make nothing.
Yeah,
At the end of the day, it's the number.
I wish there was like a super elite guy here at this
Yeah.
tournament, where the number would be better. Like, if like I don't know, if JT was here, then Burns would be like
Rory or
yeah,
somebody. Yeah.
yeah. If somebody like elite was here, then Burns would be closer to like 20-1, like 22-1. That's more of a bettable number, but 14-1, 15-1. I'd rather just take Koepka at 30-1. I think Koepka's a better player, and even though Burns might have a better chance to win, I just don't think he has double the chance to win than Brooks Koepka. So I'm going to stick with my 30-1 range for this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that scares me a little bit about Burns is the last time we saw him at this number is when he won.
Yeah,
So when he won at Sanderson's Farm, he was like 12, 13 under, and it was like we said the same thing.
I mean, if he beats us at that number, he beats us. Like, what are we gonna do? We can't bet it. Maybe like we always say, like live betting, if he has not a great round one. Yeah, he's not a great round one, but he's maybe hitting the ball well and not putting well or something like that, and you want to jump in like at like if you get a number like 30, 40-1 or something like that, I could see that after Thursday or something like that. But pre-tournament, I'm just going to lay off unless you're trying to like parlay him or something with a football game, but don't do that.
Yeah, oddly enough, I just clicked his name when he won at Sanderson Farms and looked at the leaderboard. Again, not saying that there's any correlation, but a lot of the same names in that field are also in this one.
Thigala,
yeah, Watney second, Norlander fourth, Landry fourth, Mullinex fourth, Tagala 8th, HB3 11th, Tringali 11th, CT Pan 11th. So, okay, let's, I'm not, again, there doesn't seem to be a lot of correlation between Sanderson Farms and the Houston Open, but a lot of the same names.
Bermuda track, you never know.
Exactly. So we might have discovered a new corollary course here just because the fields are so similar. But getting back to Burns, I don't know if I'll get home. I'll probably, like you, wait to catch a bigger number if he, for whatever reason, has a bad stretch or a bad round, and hope that I can get home at those numbers.
Yep. Sounds good. All right, man. I'm going to go. I have to pack because I'm going to Miami tomorrow.
That's right.
Yeah.
Going to Miami, like Will Smith said.
Yeah. I'll be hitting the road tomorrow. I will not be doing the football show tomorrow with Chris. Jake from the Buffalo Bills stream will join Chris tomorrow with Mike to do the football show. Chris is coming down to Miami on Thursday morning, so we're all going to the Ravens game on Thursday together. So catch my Instagram story. We'll post some pictures from Miami and country music festival that we're going to this weekend. So it should be fun.
Absolutely. You can follow me at DFS Jags on Twitter. And Rick, where can they find you on Twitter and on Instagram?
At Riku Mukherjee. I hope you spelled that right, Mike. It's Riku Mukherjee. I know last week on the football show you had it spelled wrong, but Riku Mukherjee. Find me on Twitter and Instagram. Our handles. You know how we do the show. Reach out to us if you have any questions. We're good to go. Let's go Koepka or Hatton or Scott. One of those guys win.
Yeah, and anybody on our betting card, since we have the exact same guys above the one. So
I like to see Mito win a tournament. Mito, come back. Come out and win a tournament.
I would.
Yeah.
We're on the Mito bandwagon. I'd love to see it happen, especially at the number you have, 70-1. I did not get that good of a number. But hey, at 60, I'll take it, and a W is a W. So good luck to everybody else out there. Rick, safe travels, man. And we will see you next week.
Yep.